What is going on, guys? Nutrish here, back with my fantasy outlook for Week 8. So, as always, we're going to be doing a recap, a stardom situm, waiver ads, who to drop, buy low, sell high candidates, and my trading center. So, if we're going off our recap, last week I feel was ridiculously successful for almost all my picks. We're going to start with Herbert. Was one of the biggest W's I could take. He got 38.5. Bridgewater was a nice solid W, 19. Tom Brady, enormous W with 37 points. Minshew, pretty big W, but I gave it a small, 19 points. Andy Dalton was my one blunder for quarterback starting, but he was a big L with 2.6, but he did get hurt, which took away from a lot of potential garbage time points. And then Matt Ryan, 17.5, good solid small W. I had a few little blunders on the sits, but they weren't anything major. Carr was my sit of the week. He had 19. It's not the end of the world if you sat him. 19 ain't great. Ryan Tannehill, 17. I gave myself a small L, but I think that was a pretty good prediction against a good defense. Carson Wentz, major L. 28 versus the Giants. I was shocked that he tore us up so bad. I'll take the L on that one. And same with Drew Brees, 24. I don't know how he did what he did, but he did. Drew Lock, 12.96. I gave myself a big W. And then Jared Goff, 16.8. Little W for my situms. For running backs, we were also very successful. Ronald Jones, 10.6. I gave myself a tiny W. That wasn't the best start of the week pick. I was wrong, unfortunately, again about Leonard Fournette. I mean, this guy just keeps finding his way back into that Bucs offense. Justin Jackson, small W, 10.5. Singletary, big L. That guy stinks. I don't even want him on my roster anymore if I'm a Singletary owner. I mean, that guy just flat out sucks. He's just always disappointing. David Johnson, I gave myself a big W. Same with Swift. Same with Boston Scott. I was really right about Boston Scott. He scored that last touchdown to save me. McKissick, small L. 7 ain't great, but it's not the end of the world. And Todd Gurley, big W, 22.2. Unfortunately, it probably made the Falcons lose, but it helped you fantasy owners that own Todd Gurley. My sit of the week, I had Devonte Freeman, 0.8. That's a massive W. I knew he was going to suck. Same with Bell, 3.9. Massive W. McKinnon, massive W. I mean, I just hit on mostly all my picks this week. Like, if you listened to me this week, then you probably won your week. Leonard Fournette, 15.7. That was an L. 5.1 from Drake. I was right about that. And then Melvin, I gave myself a small L. 12 points ain't that great. Stardom sit and wide receiver recap. Kenny Galladay, big W, 17.4. He really is the reason the Lions won. He caught that crazy pass at the end. Boyd, massive W, 27.74. Travis Fulgam, small W, 12.3, but it's pretty solid. Chase Claypool, huge L. I didn't see that coming. I don't think anybody really did. Christian Kirk, I really picked this one well too. 20.7 for Christian Kirk. Unfortunately, I was going against him. It almost made me lose. Calvin Ridley versus Detroit, 19.9, great win. And then Odell, he had 0, but I really give myself like a excuse for this one because he got hurt. Not like Andy Dalton. Dalton got hurt like towards the end, so he missed out on garbage time, but Odell got hurt right in the beginning, so the dude didn't even get a fair chance. Cooper Kupp, I gave myself a small L. 11.9 ain't great. You're not upset if you sat him and listened to me. Edelman, big W, only 2.3. As you know, the Patriots sucked this week. Robbie Anderson, 13.4. Small L. Not the end of the world if you sat. Jerry Jeudy, big W, 4 points. Ruggs, big W, 6.5. And Sanders, I had benched, but he didn't play, so that doesn't mean anything. Tight ends. So this is like my one area where I keep having trouble, but I think I did all right this week. Tony was a big L with 5.2. Henry was a big L with 5.3. Hooper didn't play, but I was right about the Browns tight end because they all went off. Njoku and Bryant went off. So if you listened to me about the Browns tight end, then you would have done it, and he would have done really well for you, but I didn't give myself credit for that. All I said was he didn't play, but Cleveland tight ends did go off. Jimmy Graham, small W, 8.1 is okay for a tight end. And Schultz, little L. I should have put big L, but 4.2 ain't great at all. Jonnu, my sit of the week, really, really did shit. So that was a great sit of the week. Jonnu only at 1.9. Richard Rodgers, I was wrong about. You'll see I have him mentioned later in the video. He had 14.9. I didn't think he was going to do that great. Greg Olsen, big W, 3.8. Jared Cook caught that one touchdown pass, which really screwed it up. He had 12.2. I gave myself a big L. And Noah Fant, 6.8, little W. My defensive side did really good too. We had 4 out of 6 right. The Cowboys did really bad, and so did the Browns. But the Browns were my last ranked one, so it's not that big of a deal. But we did really good with the Bills, the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the Niners. All right, going into this week. My start of the week, as much as I hate to say it, Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz has been doing great, 29.42. And 27.76 in the last 2. That's supposed to say he's facing Dallas, which is the 23rd. So my bad for accidentally putting the Giants, but he's facing Dallas. He got 27.76 versus the Giants last week. This week he plays Dallas, which is 24th. I think he's just going to replicate it. Dallas sucks, and he's been going off. I mean, look at those points. I definitely have him as my start of the week, and he should be available in some leagues. I have Bridgewater as a start. He had 20-something versus Atlanta last time, and he's playing them again. I don't see why he would do bad. Garoppolo's been on fire. He had a little bit of a bad week versus New England, but versus a shitty Seattle D, roll with it. Baker, 5 touchdowns, 20 of 20 passing after his first 5 incompletions last week. Let him rip versus that shitty Vegas defense, yo. He is popping off, okay? Baker, keep sleeping on Baker Mayfield, and he is going to prove the haters wrong. I'll pick him up, and I'm going to start him this week in my lineup. We'll see how it goes. I'll let you guys know. Derek Carr versus Cleveland. I was wrong about him in my sit of the week. I'm giving him the start this week. Versus Cleveland's crappy D, we saw what Burrow just did to it. I'm starting Derek Carr. And then Joe Burrow versus Tennessee. Joe Burrow just had like 35 points in an explosion versus Cleveland. I think versus Tennessee he could do something similar. Their defense ain't that great as we saw this week. My sit of the week is Drew Brees. But sitting him last week bit me in the ass a little bit in my report. But I think that this week is going to be better. I think he's definitely going to suck versus Chicago. It looks as if Michael Thomas is not going to be back this week, and neither is Sanders. So he's going to be without both of his guys. I think it's going to be bad this week. Stafford's been okay. He had 19 last week. I started him in one of my leagues. But versus Indy, don't touch him. Indy's defense is absolutely elite. And then we have some bold predictions in this week's start of the sit-ems for the start-em sit-em QBs. Josh Allen, who you probably would never ever sit him this week versus New England. If you have one of those waiver scrubs, like if you can get Baker or Jimmy, they're sitting on your waiver, I would start them over Josh Allen. New England's defense is too good that even if they got blown out versus the Niners, they still only gave up 7 points to Jimmy G. I would not mess with Josh Allen, not this week. Matt Ryan versus Carolina. Matt Ryan's been resurging, but versus Carolina, he's not going to do that great. He didn't last time, so... And then Jared Goff versus Miami. Goff did okay last week, but this week I think it's going to get worse because Miami's D solid. And then I have another big sit. We have Lamar Jackson versus Pittsburgh. They're the 6th ranked defense. They just gave Tannehill only 17. I don't think Lamar's going to do much. That division rivalry is going to get sloppy. I'm telling you. I think that the only way Baltimore wins that game is if they capitalize on Ben Roethlisberger interceptions because Lamar is not going to be doing it. Okay, my start, sit-em running backs. I was right last week about Boston Scott. I'm rolling with him again. If he plays, which he should, he's my start of the week. If not, obviously, if you're a Miles Sanders owner, he's my start of the week in replacement if Boston doesn't play. But however, it's looking likely like Boston is going to play, so I have my little picture of the little 5'6" running back right there. Definitely rev him up. He had a solid 18.6 last week. And then I got Daryl Henderson versus Miami. That Rams backfield is a little pathetic right now, but versus Miami, who's bad against the run, I would feel good about starting Daryl. And if you're really desperate, you could start Malcolm Brown. I have JaMychal Hasty versus Seattle. JaMychal Hasty looked pretty good this week. He only got limited carries, but Jeff Wilson got hurt. McKinnon doesn't seem to be the guy, so I think Hasty's a good pickup, and I think he's a decent start this week. Le'Veon versus the Jets. Le'Veon only had like 5 points last week, but versus his old team, I could see him doing something. I don't know why I'm feeling the start here. Melvin Gordon versus the Chargers, his former team as well. I think he's gonna do very well. He's been all right in fantasy. I think he's gonna get a score or something versus the Chargers. It was hard to pick running backs this week. It felt like a lot of the mediocre ones were like on buys and stuff. It was pretty hard. John Taylor versus Detroit. John Taylor is an absolute beast. He's going against a weak defense. They're just coming off a bye. He got some rest. So his knees are feeling nice. He's going to have a good week. LaMichael Peerine actually scored last week versus the Bills. He's a Jets running back versus Casey, who doesn't cover the run well. I think you can get a score out of him. If you're desperate, I think he's a pretty good start. And then I have Carlos Hyde. Even though he's going against a great defense, the Seattle running backs are elite. If Carson's not playing, Hyde is the start. Sit of the week is Josh Kelly. He had 10 points last week, but versus Denver's tough defense, I think it's only going to get worse. I wouldn't start him even with Eckler still hurt. Singletary versus New England. New England's a shitty run defense, and I still put Singletary on my sit. I would not feel confident about starting him until he catches a little bit of heat. Damien Harris versus Buffalo. Buffalo's a really good team. That's going to be a tough game for New England, so I would not start him. Jamal Williams should be falling back to his passing role, and right there I don't think he's worth starting. Miami's a pretty good defensive team, so stay away from him. Devonte Freeman versus Tampa. Tampa's going to absolutely destroy the Giants, and it's not even funny. So don't even start him. If it's Gallman, don't start him. I know it's a toss-up on who's going to start for the Giants. Don't start any of them right now. And then Deandre Swift versus Indy. I'm big on Swift right now, but versus Indy, you just can't do it. Sit him for somebody in my starts instead. Start him, sit him wide receivers. Start of the week, I'm rolling with my boy Tyler Boyd. I traded for him last week. He gave me 28 points, won me my week. I'm rolling with him as my start of the week. The Joe Burrow Tyler Boyd connection is becoming very underrated. That's like his number one go-to guy, and people are obsessed with the rookie hype with T. Higgins or the veteran hype with A.J. Green. I think Tyler Boyd's that sweet medium. I think that's his best guy to go to. And then I have Travis Fulgam as my second guy. He's been on fire, and versus Dallas, it should keep up. Dallas is a very bad team. I got Robbie Anderson moving up from the sit-em to the stardom versus Atlanta. He should be having a really nice week. I have Hollywood Brown versus Pittsburgh. Hollywood's been good, and versus Pittsburgh in that divisional matchup, I think that he's going to be the one to do something if anybody on Baltimore is going to do something. I have a good feeling about Hollywood. Brandon Ayuk versus Seattle. Ayuk's been good, man. He's been one of the top, I would say top 3, top 5, around there, rookie wide receivers this year. I feel good about him versus shitty Seattle. Jarvis is good. Jarvis had a really good week without Odell there, and unfortunately, it looks like my favorite player, Odell Beckham Jr., is out for the season. So, Jarvis is a big pickup right now. If you could somehow make a trade for him, I think he's worth starting this week. Jarvis is a great receiver in his own land, and especially without OBJ there, he's just going to be fielding targets. And then I have CD bouncing back after his shitty week this week. My sit of the week, that's not updated. My startup sit-em receivers ain't updated. Unfortunate. I skipped over the sit-ems. Give me one super quick second. I would sit Sterling Shepard versus Tampa, obviously. They're not going to do great versus the Giants. I would sit Jamison Crowder versus KC. Even if he starts, he's banged up. I would sit Diontae Johnson versus Baltimore. He was on fire last week, but Baltimore's a tough defense, and I don't think he's going to do it again. He's also listed as questionable. I would sit Darius Slayton versus Tampa Bay, so any Giants wide receiver. I would sit John Brown versus New England, and I would sit Julian Edelman, but it's not versus San Fran, it's versus Buffalo. So I'm sorry that the graphics not up there. That'll be fixed next time, but I don't want to pause the video and have to restart. We've done so well to this point, so you can rewind that, listen to my picks. Those sit-ems are very accurate as well, and they will be. My start sit-em tight ends. My start of the week tight end is Noah Fant versus the Chargers. They're the 23rd ranked. They really ain't popping right now defensively. And Noah Fant had a pretty good week in his week back. It wasn't crazy, but I think it's going to get better. Jimmy Graham versus New Orleans. Jimmy Graham's been consistent, and versus New Orleans, who covers the tight end bad. I got him here. Mike Gesicki, he's bitten me in the ass on the starters before, but I think Tua and his young tight end are going to get off to a good start, so we'll see. Jono versus Cincy. Jonnu had a really bad week, but I think he's due for a bounce back. And then I got Drew Sample versus Tennessee. The Bengals tight end has been pretty solid, and I think he's going to continue that. My sit of the week is somebody who I've had in the starts and start of the weeks multiple times is TJ Hockenson. I think versus Indy, I just wouldn't start like basically any line except for Kenny Galladay. Hawkins is going to have a tough time versus that defense. I have Kyle Rudolph. Kyle Rudolph's been crappy, but versus Green Bay, who covers the tight end well, it's going to be even crappier. Hayden Hurst versus Carolina. They're the 10th ranked. So I wouldn't mess with him either. And then Jared Cook and Evan Ingram. Ingram is just disappointing, and Cook got lucky off one touchdown last week. Start of sim defense and kickers. Start of the week, Bucks versus Giants, automatic. They're already the number 2 D. If you have them, you're the happiest man in the world right now versus the Giants. Chiefs versus Jets. Chiefs just had 21 points against the Broncos. Imagine what they're going to do to the Jets. Bills held the Jets pretty well, so I think they're going to do just as good versus the Pats. Cam's arm looks dead. Saints versus Bears, Chargers versus Broncos, and Rams versus Dolphins. The only bold one there is Rams versus Dolphins because the Dolphins are a good team. But I think going against rookie Tua, I think he's bound to make a mistake, even though I think he's going to have a great career. He's bound to make a mistake in his debut, so that's why I had the Rams here. And then I listed some kickers who are good. Kickers is always a blatant toss-up, so... waiver ads. My waiver ads this week are Chase Edmonds. I know he has a high percentage owned, but he's such an important ad this week if he's available. Carlos Hyde, I put him over Jermichael Hasty, and I'll tell you why. Tevin Coleman is on his way back, and I think he has better long-term value than Hasty. I think Hasty's like a 1 or 2 week replacement right now. I think Hyde has his value as long as Carson's gone. So, I put Hyde over Hasty. Hasty should be picked up too, though. So should Tevin Coleman. I have Baker because he's my start. I have Sterling Shepard, even though I sit him this week. He's very lowly owned, and he helped the Giants a lot. I think he's going to have a good year. Brandon Ayuk has been fantastic. He's also in my start, and same with Richard Rodgers. 6.5% owned, so let it rip. My trade center. My sell high guys are Diontae Johnson. I know he just had a big week. People might still be on the hype train about him. Sell him if you can. He's not the guy over there. Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett was absolutely phenomenal this week. 50-something points. He's not that every week, okay? DK Metcalf is too good of a competitor. He takes away from Lockett. Lockett's good no matter what. But right now, after that week Lockett had, you might be able to flip him for freaking, I don't know. You might be able to get Tyreek Hill and something for Tyler Lockett because Tyreek had like a mediocre week. You could do something like that, then it's worth trading him. Same thing with Diggs. Diggs is like not somebody you have to trade at all, but for how on fire he's been and how bad Josh Allen's quarterback play is dipping, I think he's a decent sell high candidate. Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon right now looks like the worst of the two backs in Denver. I think Lindsey's working his way back in there, so I would sell Melvin high while you can. Mike Davis, this might be his last week playing, if he's going to play at all. Like, McCaffrey might be back this week, so sell Mike Davis if you can. Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley has been on fire, but I don't think he's going to keep it up just because Atlanta's offense is not that great. DJ Moore. DJ Moore had a huge week with 2 touchdowns. I still think Robbie's the number 1. And then Ronald. I mean, Leonard Fournette just keeps working his way back in there. I would sell Ronald. I'd be too afraid of Leonard Fournette. My buy lows are Cooper Kupp. He's been a little crappy, but we know how good Kupp can be. Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown is a primetime animal, and I think that he's going to be back and better this week. John Taylor, people might be sleeping on him after the bye. He's a fantastic back with a fantastic offensive line. Leonard Fournette is back and better than ever. The number 4 pick is looking great on Tampa Bay. Raheem Mostert is hurt right now. You might be able to buy him super low. I think he's definitely the guy when he comes back. And then Jarvis. I know Jarvis might be a little expensive right now, but I think he's worth it because in a few weeks he might be demanding way more. So that's it for my trade center, guys. Please let me know. I'm going to put in the comments my sit-em for the wide receivers again because I know I missed that area. So I'm going to leave that as a pinned comment. And then please let me know any trade questions you have, any stardom questions. We did really freaking good last week. So trust in me, guys. Share this with your friends. Help yourself win your league. And I wish you guys all the best. Thank you for tuning in. Noochers, signing out.